All right, everyone, we're going to continue into our afternoon session of media availabilities. We are now joined by our 2022 Daytona 500 champion, Austin Cindric, driver of the number 2, Team Penske Ford. If you have a question for Austin, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless microphone to you. Start with Jeff.
Since you gifted us with content last night, can you explain more, like, how did the keys get locked in your vehicle in the first place? And, like, from the pictures, it looked like there was a chance you could have gotten stuck there and still been there right now. So were you worried about not being able to get out?
The danger of what we were doing didn't set in until a little bit later, but I'll get into that. So to clarify, the Airstream isn't mine, it's my parents'. So my dad brought it down here for the Rolex and organized it with the track to let us keep it here so we don't have to go back and forth. You know, it's only 2 or 3 weeks away. So in between miscommunications, there's really only one full set of keys. And that full set of keys ended up being locked into the trailer on purpose. Didn't quite know that at 8:30 at night. I had like a partial set, but it only does like the deadbolt and a few other things, which the door was locked. So trying to figure out where the keys are, nobody knows where the keys are. So the bed, like the sleeping bed, is like in the front of the trailer, and I know that it's on a hinge because last year when I was here, I was having to find fuses and stuff under there. Anyway, so the bed's on a hinge. So I'm like, all right, if I can crawl in there and get enough leverage to push up on the bed, I should be able to crawl out. So that's when I called Harrison, and I said, hey, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I'm like, good, come here. So Harrison comes over. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how to lift myself into here without like breaking the latch and all this other stuff, because my dad would kill me. So I had Harrison pick up my legs and shove me in. And from there, I realized I didn't have near enough leverage to pick up a bed because the hinge is like right here. And there was like about a foot gap that I would be able to get in if I lifted the bed up all the way. Zero leverage. I was doing more to like pick up all the other structure around me than the actual bed. So that was a problem. So then we decided it was a good idea to take off like the panel that separates the bed. So we Phillips head screwdriver and took out like 20 screws, wood screws, and that couldn't pull off because it was stuck on something else. So about that time, enough people on the team and my pops had called me and said, look, the keys are inside. So whatever you're doing to break in, just keep going. So I'm like, all right, any means necessary, confirmed. So I tried to take off the panel, couldn't do it. So we tried to lift up on the whole thing to see what was keeping the panel from coming off. And as I lifted up, like some of the panels kind of moved and shifted the bed forward, and there was a bit of a hole. And I'm like, all right, Harrison, is there enough room for you to crawl in if I keep lifting up? So I lock out my arms, and Harrison shimmies through the hole in the side of the bed, and the rest is history. So Harrison brought out the keys, and the bed is still stable. You know, I kind of half-assed put it back in position, had to take some stuff off to make sure it wouldn't like move around. But yeah, that's how the Speed Weeks has started. I was going to go to the grocery store, have yet to do that, but I don't normally do the whole DO lot motorhome thing just because like logistics, you got to pay somebody, and I'm cheap, and it just doesn't. It doesn't like. I also like standing up in the shower. Like I can't exactly. I sit down in the shower in the Airstream because like I'm tall, so all of those things add up to me not doing it very often. But you know, Daytona 500 weekend, a lot of logistics here for a while. But yeah, a bit more fun than I thought I had bargained for yesterday. After my rental car was 2 hours late to getting to the airport, so I was already behind. So it's a good start.
All right, following that great opening question, we are going to go to Kelly Crandall. Go ahead, Kelly.
How do I follow that?
That's what I'm saying.
I wanted to ask about the YouTube videos. Sorry. The YouTube videos that Discount Tire and everybody's been putting out, looking back at last year's race. How neat has that been to just, has it helped it sink in further what you did last year, getting to relive it again?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, Discount Tire's done the defending Daytona series, and it's not just talking to me or any of my family members, it's everybody on the team and what everybody's individual experience has been. And, through looking back on all of it, even directly after the race, those are the moments that, adds gravity to that accomplishment, because I get to know, what that race and what that moment means to other people within the team. Obviously, I know what that means to me. But I think further than that, even driving in last night, it's Tuesday, seeing how many campers are already packed in, that has shown me how big of a race this is. And not that I don't think I took it for granted, but like I've had a whole year to like reflect on the experience and how far reaching the Daytona 500 goes outside of the motorsports community. So I think this year will probably make me understand how big of a day and how big of a achievement that was. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the weekend and kind of getting my eyes open a little bit and a little bit of perspective. But yeah, hearing any events from within the team or what that means is special for me to hear for sure.
Go to Zach in the middle.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Austin, kind of to that point then, how has, I guess, the being a Daytona 500 champion over the last year, has that changed anything for you? Do you feel like you command more respect in the motorsports community because you've won the Daytona 500? I guess just what's the aura that comes with that?
I mean, for me, I haven't changed in the slightest. Even after winning the 500, I had to take my trash out on Monday, and I got jury summons 2 weeks later. So it's just, yeah, that was the second edition. So anyway, different story, different time. Okay. I got a deferral, and then I told them that they could send me one, like from these are the weeks I have off. I had Roger's attorney send a letter and everything just to make sure, because I'm like, this is the busiest week of my life. Just won the Daytona 500. And so they followed up, and they sent me one in December. And yes, I had to serve on the jury for a week and a half in December on a criminal murder trial. But like I said, guilty or not guilty? Very guilty. So good life experience, horrible timing. Back to your question, which I've half forgotten. How does that change Austin Cindric? That doesn't change Austin Cindric at all, but it does change how I'm introduced and perceived. And some people will only and forever know who Austin Cindric is because he won the Daytona 500, and I'm totally fine with that. But it does change, and it did change throughout the entire year. Last year, it's not rookie Austin Cindric, it's Daytona 500 winner. I mean, even when Sam announced me, it almost seems normal now, which is kind of weird because all of last year, it's like, oh my God, I did that, didn't I? And I think, how I'm viewed or what people know me as or what people know me for sure. I think that changes. But for me, I approach this weekend just like any other race because I think you need to mentally because it is the start of our season. But otherwise, it's certainly something fun to reflect on and kind of gives you perspective on, big moments of your life and how you go about them and how you perceive yourself. And yeah, certainly a lot more reflection than just any other race for sure. It was a murder trial. Iredell. Yeah, it's whatever. I've had an interesting off season, all right.
Austin, because of your family connections are so strong with another major race, at what point did you switch from looking through that lens at what a big event is to looking through this lens at what this event is?
Yeah, certainly it's hard not to compare the two, especially when, I'd been going to the Indy 500 since I was, couldn't even comprehend what I was watching. So the Indy 500 has always been a massive part of my life, like you mentioned, a huge part of my family on both sides. So I don't think there's really any replacement for that, but for me, it's how is the Daytona 500 different? What makes it its own unique event? And it is, and I think that's fun to watch and fun to be a part of, and understanding, what this race means to motorsports versus what the Indy 500 means to motorsports. And I think they're two different things, but, I think, after last year and some of my success, I guess if you look at the Cindric family as a whole, we're no longer defined by Indianapolis, and I think that's kind of cool to think of, my impact on that just throughout our family, and as much as racing has influenced, everybody else's path in life under the Cindric name. It's cool to know that I've had that influence and maybe made things a little wider reaching.
Any additional questions for Austin? Go back to Zach. Oh, okay. We can go to you. Okay. We'll go to Greg and then to Zach.
So the whole weekend thing, you don't do like the other guys. You don't stay in motorhomes during the weekends.
Not most races. I'd say I made a list actually last year. There's about 4 or 5 that I picked out last year. I ended up doing 3 or 4 of them. But I made a list of all the ones that were like logistically challenging. Like Michigan, it's a 2-way road all the way up to the racetrack, and I cannot be late to the racetrack because, the way the garage opening times and opportunities for sponsor appearances work now, it's flat out from the time the garage opens to driver intros for a driver now. You're going. So, making sure you're on track, at the track early enough and being in the right place and proximity, places like Pocono or Michigan or Talladega, you're not staying close enough to the hotel really for race days. So it's more just a logistical thing for me than anything else. I don't mind sleeping in the camper, but like I said, I'd much rather somebody else make my bed and stand up in the shower and all the other things I described. But it's fun, but I see the motorhome life, the DO lot life as, if you have a family, if you have a bunch of friends coming every race, like those people do need somewhere to be and hang out. Like, you can't just bring your girlfriend and your mom and they hang out in the hauler with the pit crew guys before the race. Like that's probably not, these guys are here to do their jobs, but I do think I'm probably a bit unique because my dad has somewhere to go when he's here. He's not just, a fan or a bystander. So, and kind of the same with my mom, honestly. So, I feel like I'm a bit unique in that respect. I understand the need for it, but I wouldn't see me doing it full time for quite a while.
Thank you.
You don't have full access to RP1? You can't just send all your friends over there to hang out?
No, Roger Penske's bus is used for whatever Roger Penske needs it for. Not for me.
I'm curious if you've had any sort of relationship with Kevin Harvick. I know this is only your second full-time year in the Cup Series, but as he's getting ready to transition out of the car and into the TV booth, have you had any sort of relationship with him, and just what's been your take on his career?
Yeah, my most recent encounter with Kevin was at the Coliseum, and I got dumped twice in one heat race. But past that, it's been fun to get to know him. He's obviously, I would categorize him as a polarizing figure, just because of I feel like he speaks his mind, and I feel like that does a lot for the industry. I have gotten an ass chewing from Kevin at COTA last year. That was an interesting experience. But I feel like understanding where he sits and where his career is at, and I think it'll be fun to see how he races this year. And by that I mean I don't think he's going to care about anyone else all year. And I think the Coliseum was a good gauge of that. I feel like probably one of the cooler experiences I've had with Kevin was my go-kart garage is in proximity to the kind of the guys that take care of his stuff. And I got to see Keelan go out and drive for the first time and kind of see how he reacts and just understanding that. And, Keelan coming back in another time and having a donut on the side of his go-kart, and he was so excited about it. And I can remember the first time I got a donut on my Bandolero, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So just kind of almost parallel paths in some ways, and seeing how, having a kid and driving, I would never want that, but I'm sure he can't really avoid it. But yeah, I would say that was probably one of the cooler experiences I've had with him. But otherwise, I expect him to be full throttle all year for sure.
Any additional questions? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I was here last year. This is Alan from the Alan and Aaron Sports Creator Show. I was here last year when you won. Coming into the pit and showing up, did you feel as if your peers have maybe treated you a bit differently now that you won it last year?
It's hard to say. I guess you'll have to ask them because I don't. it was the first race for me really as a full-time driver, and I'd only done a few other cup races. So with a whole group of competitors that I don't know or hadn't raced against before, I don't really know if I had a baseline of what racing Austin Cindric would be like beforehand. So I guess I did it early enough to where if there was an effect, I didn't recognize it. It was probably just more normal for me, I guess.
Holly, we'll go to Holly next.
This is kind of deep.
Okay.
And you may have answered this before, and I'm just not remembering off the top of my head. But was there ever a point in your life that you weren't going to be a driver? You were going to be more like your father and work for a race team or do the business side of things? And if that were the case, how good did it make you feel after winning the Daytona 500 that you did go the route that you went?
Yeah, I never looked at racing as like a job, I guess. When I was growing up, you know, obviously being around my dad with what he does and, you know, the access we had, I knew enough at a young age that like the access that we had to go to races and hang out with all these drivers like Elio and, you know, shake hands with Roger every race day. Like, I know that's not a normal experience for, you know, someone coming to a racetrack normally. But it was never something that I really wanted to do as far as, you know, within management. I always loved cars. I don't think I really ever thought about it, to be honest. I mean, as I have grown up and become a driver and you know, I know what my dad does and you know, I've worked with a lot of people with a lot of different race teams, and I can certainly see how challenging his job is. I've gotten a lot more perspective on what it takes to be, you know, running 3 or 4 different race programs for, you know, an elite motorsports organization. So I think I've gained a lot of respect for what he does and what's on his plate as I've grown up, you know, driving race cars. But it was never something that I really envisioned. You know, I think about, man, if I was in his spot, how would I do that? Like, oh my God, this guy's got so much going on. But otherwise, yeah, always just wanted to be a driver, maybe just do something else. But I can't really think of what anything else would be at this point in my life.
Elio came pretty close to getting a ride, or at least he was in discussions with a ride this year at Daytona. That would have probably been the first time you ever got a chance to race with him. What would that have meant to you?
Yeah, Elio, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Elio's my hero growing up. He's such a interesting personality that you can't not love the guy, especially if you know him personally. Like, I feel like some people might think he's fake or, you know, putting on an act, but he's genuinely the same high energy person that you see on TV, at the racetrack, in person, whatever else it may be. So I love the guy. You know, I think his background coming in doing the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500 cold turkey certainly would be a challenge, but I think he wants to do it. I've talked with him about it before. It's something he wants to do, and I think just finding the right opportunity. I mean, the guy's won 4 Indy 500s and countless races, you know, especially for Team Penske. So I think the guy deserves a genuine shot at running well, not just participating. So you know, if he gets to do it, I hopefully am there with him. It'd be cool to give him a push or two, but otherwise, definitely something that would be really fun for, I think, everybody to watch and observe and see how well he does.
Any other questions? All right, Austin, thanks for joining us and good luck this week.
Cool. Thank you.